The night of the charity gala was brighter than the stars above it. Expensive cars lined up outside the billionaire Andrew Cole's mansion, their shiny bodies reflecting the golden light strung across the entrance. Guests stepped out wearing glittering gowns, designer tuxedos, and jewelry that sparkled like tiny suns. Everything about the night screamed wealth, power, and exclusivity. The mansion itself looked like something out of a royal painting. White marble stairs, tall glass pillars, and a fountain that shot up water in perfect rhythm with the soft classical music playing in the background. Inside the ballroom, waiters glided around carrying silver trays filled with champagne and delicate appetizers. Laughter echoed in clusters, and people spoke loudly about their businesses, travels, and fortunes. The smell of expensive perfumes mixed with the scent of roses placed elegantly along every table. It was the kind of place where everyone walked as if they owned the world, their pride almost visible in the air. Into this glamorous world, Maya arrived quietly. Her entrance was nothing like the others. No cameras flashed. No announcers called her name. She walked in without a crowd, without diamonds, without a designer gown. She wore a simple soft blue dress, comfortable for her baby bump, and carried herself with gentle grace. Her hair was tied loosely, her makeup light, and her smile small but sincere. She didn't try to stand out. She wasn't here for attention. She came because her close friend had invited her, telling her the event was safe and friendly. Maya trusted her. As she stepped into the ballroom, heads turned, not because she was loud or flashy but because she was different. Some guests glanced at her belly and whispered. Others looked at her dress and judged quietly. And some simply wondered why a woman like her was at an event reserved for the city's richest and most powerful. But Maya didn't notice or didn't let it bother her. She walked slowly, holding her hands gently over her stomach, protecting the child she carried. Her steps were soft, measured, almost floating through the room. She wasn't used to such extravagant environments, but she held her dignity like a shield. She found a quiet corner near a table decorated with white lilies, hoping to blend into the background and enjoy a peaceful evening. Across the room, the billionaire host, Andrew Cole, noticed her. He was surrounded by his friends, laughing loudly, raising glasses of champagne like trophies. Andrew was a tall man with slicked back hair and an ego larger than his mansion. He enjoyed being the center of attention. He enjoyed showing off his wealth. But more than anything, he enjoyed judging people he considered below his level. When his eyes fell on Maya, he narrowed them with curiosity and arrogance. She didn't look like the wealthy wives and socialites he usually entertained. She wore no diamonds. She carried no designer handbag. And she was standing completely alone. That was enough for Andrew to assume she didn't belong. "Who invited her?" he asked his friends with a smirk. One of them shrugged. Another laughed and said, "She looks lost. Maybe she wandered in by mistake." Andrew sipped his wine, already crafting rude jokes in his mind. He loved moments like these. Moments where he could humiliate someone publicly and make himself feel more powerful. Meanwhile, Maya spotted a waiter passing by and gently asked for some sparkling water instead of champagne. She thanked him softly, her voice barely above the music. She placed her hand over her belly again, whispering to her baby, "We won't stay long, okay?" She didn't know someone was watching her with cruel intentions. As she stood there quietly, a couple approached her and asked polite questions. "How far along are you? And you must be tired." Maya smiled warmly, grateful for some kindness. But the moment they walked away, Andrew began moving toward her with slow, calculated steps, his friends following behind him like a pack eager for entertainment. Maya noticed him approaching and offered a polite smile, thinking he might be greeting her as the host. She didn't know the arrogance hidden behind his fake charm. She didn't know he had already judged her from a distance. She didn't know she was walking into the start of a painful moment that would bring humiliation, shock, and consequences far bigger than the billionaire could imagine. When Andrew reached her, he greeted her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Maya introduced herself softly, but he didn't truly listen. He looked at her dress, then at her belly, then at her empty wrist. No expensive jewelry. His smile twisted into something mocking. "So," Andrew said loudly, making sure nearby guests heard, "who did you come with?" His tone wasn't friendly. It wasn't curious. It was insulting. Maya answered politely, explaining she was invited by her friend. But Andrew leaned closer and whispered, "This is a gala for high society. You sure you're in the right place?" Maya's smile faded slightly. Something felt wrong. Something felt disrespectful. But before she could reply, a waiter passed by with a tray of red wine, and Andrew's eyes lit up with a cruel idea. And that idea, born out of arrogance, was about to change the entire night. Andrew Cole stared at Maya like she was some mistake in his perfect, glittering world. The music in the ballroom played softly, the chandeliers sparkled above, and the wealthy guests continued laughing, completely unaware that a cruel moment was about to unfold at the center of the hall. Andrew's friends watched him with mischievous grins, knowing he loved embarrassing people who couldn't fight back. To them, Maya wasn't a guest, she was entertainment. Maya stood calmly, holding her sparkling water and trying to stay polite. She felt uncomfortable under Andrew's stare, but she didn't want to cause a scene. She tried to keep smiling, but her heart was already beating a little faster. Something about him felt wrong, like the quiet air before a storm. "So," Andrew said loudly, his words dripping with arrogance, "you came alone? No husband? No date?" Maya adjusted her dress protectively over her baby bump and answered softly, "My friend invited me. My husband, he avoids crowded events. He prefers quiet places." Andrew raised an eyebrow. His friends exchanged looks. They assumed her husband must be broke, shy, or simply unimportant. "Oh," Andrew chuckled, "one of those husbands? Invisible." Maya stayed silent. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She didn't owe Andrew an explanation. She simply wanted to enjoy the evening and leave peacefully. But Andrew wasn't satisfied. He had tasted the first drop of power and wanted more. "Tell me," he continued, stepping closer, "how did you even get invited? You don't seem like the charity gala type." Maya blinked, stunned. I came because my friend said it was a welcoming event." "It is," Andrew smirked, "for people who belong." The words hit Maya like a cold splash. She swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure. Her hand instinctively moved to her belly, as if shielding her unborn child from the poison in his voice. People around them began to notice the tension. Some paused mid-conversation, sensing Andrew was up to something. They knew his reputation well. When he grew this smug, it never ended nicely. Andrew's eyes moved from Maya's face to her dress. "Simple dress," he said loudly, making sure others heard. "Did you get it from a local shop? Or maybe a thrift store?" Maya felt her cheeks warm with embarrassment, but she didn't lower her head. "It's comfortable," she replied softly. "That's what matters to me." "Oh, that's adorable," Andrew mocked. "Comfort over style. Very practical." His friends laughed quietly. A few guests turned away, uncomfortable but unwilling to interfere. No one wanted to offend a billionaire. Maya took a slow breath. She knew she didn't belong in this world of glitter and arrogance, but she also knew she didn't deserve to be treated so rudely. She thought of leaving, but her feet froze, partly from shock, partly because the insult wounded her more deeply than she expected. Andrew saw her silence and mistook it for weakness. And weakness, to him, was an invitation. He reached for the tray of wine that a passing waiter carried. The waiter hesitated, sensing something was off, but Andrew snatched a glass anyway, swirling the red liquid with a mischievous smile. "You know," he said, holding the glass dangerously close to Maya, "in high society, a good wine says everything about a person. Red is bold, elegant, expensive." Maya stepped back a little, feeling danger. Andrew stepped forward. "You should try it," he said, lips curling into a cruel smirk. "It might help you blend in better." Maya shook her head gently. "No, thank you." He raised the glass. Her heart dropped. The room felt suddenly colder. Even the music seemed to dim. Andrew leaned close enough for her to smell the wine. "Are you sure? It would look lovely on your dress." Maya's breath caught in her throat. She sensed what he was about to do, but not quickly enough. Before she could step away, apologize, or protest, Andrew tipped the glass forward. The red wine left the rim in a dark, shimmering arc, and headed straight for her. For her dress. For her body. For her dignity. Maya gasped, not because she feared the stain, but because this act was meant to humiliate her. And all around her, the wealthy guests froze, their eyes widening, their murmurs rising, their phones lifting, as the cruel moment unfolded in slow, painful silence. And somewhere far away in the shadows of the night, the man who loved her, the man Andrew assumed was invisible, was minutes away from learning what someone had dared to do to his pregnant wife. The red wine flew through the air like a dark ribbon, twisting and shimmering under the golden ballroom lights. Maya gasped softly and took a half step back, but she was too late. The wine splashed across her dress in a heavy wave, soaking the soft blue fabric and spreading across her baby bump like a cruel stain. The coldness of the liquid made her inhale sharply, but the coldness of humiliation cut even deeper. The room fell into immediate silence. 100 eyes stared at her, some in shock, some in pity, some with phones raised, eager to capture the moment that should never have happened. But not a single person stepped forward to defend her. Not one voice spoke up. Andrew Cole, the billionaire who caused it, stood proudly with the empty glass tipped in his hand, a smirk growing wider across his lips. He didn't apologize. He didn't act shocked. He didn't even pretend it was an accident. Instead he said loudly, "Oh dear. I guess red does look better on you." A few people laughed under their breath, the kind of nervous laughter that comes from wanting to stay on the powerful man's good side. Maya's eyes stung, not from the wine, but from the cruelty behind his voice. She held her arms around her belly, trying to cover the soaking dress, trying to protect her unborn child from the shame she felt crashing down on her. Her heart pounded painfully. She could hear it in her ears. Why is this happening? Why here? Why me? Andrew stepped closer, enjoying every second of her discomfort. You should feel honored, he mocked. This wine costs more than your entire wardrobe. Maya swallowed hard, fighting tears. Please, stop, she whispered. But Andrew wasn't done. He leaned close enough for only her to hear and hissed, "Next time try not to ruin the view of my party." Maya's breath shook. Her baby moved inside her, maybe sensing her stress, maybe reacting to her racing heartbeat. She placed her hand over her stomach, needing to calm herself, needing to protect her child from this ugliness. Standing in front of her were the wealthy, powerful, polished faces of the city, people who donated to charities, smiled for cameras, and pretended to care about equality. But now, faced with injustice in front of them, they stood frozen. A woman nearby murmured, "Oh my God, she's pregnant." Another whispered, "Someone should stop Andrew." But no one did. Some filmed, some looked away, some whispered gossip. Yet not one person came to Maya's side. She took a slow, trembling breath and said gently, "I need to clean this." She turned to leave, hoping to escape before more damage was done. But Andrew blocked her path. With the same arrogant smirk, he lifted both hands in a mocking gesture. "Where are you going? The night is young. Don't be so sensitive, it was just a little wine." The crowd murmured, sensing something was going too far. A few guests looked uncomfortable. Some lowered their phones. But Andrew didn't care. His ego fed on silence. Maya met his eyes, not with anger but with a quiet strength that made even Andrew blink. "You shouldn't treat people this way," she whispered. "And you," he shot back, "should learn your place." Her heart cracked. Her dignity bent. Her spirit wavered. But she didn't break. She took one last deep breath and stepped aside. This time Andrew didn't stop her. He simply laughed and tossed the empty glass to a passing waiter. As Maya walked toward the restroom, people stepped back to make space, creating a path through the glittering ballroom. The wine dripped onto the floor behind her, leaving a trail like wounded footprints. Every step felt heavier than the last. Every breath felt tighter. Every whisper felt sharper. But she kept walking, not for herself but for the tiny heartbeat inside her. She didn't know that someone had already left the room quietly. Someone who had seen Andrew pour the wine. Someone who recognized Maya. Someone who knew exactly who her husband was. And while Maya washed the wine from her shaking hands, that person was already dialing a number with trembling fingers. A voice answered on the other end, deep and steady. "Who is this?" The witness swallowed hard. "It's about Maya, your wife. You need to come. Now." 10 minutes away, in a dark SUV moving through the city, a man's eyes narrowed. A dangerous calm settled over him. Marcus Blackwell, crime boss, feared leader, revered protector, had just heard the one sentence no man like him should ever hear. "Someone hurt your wife." Maya stood inside the restroom, gripping the edge of the sink as cold water ran over her trembling hands. The red wine had left a dark stain across her dress, soaking into the fabric like an ugly reminder of what had just happened. She dabbed at it with paper towels, but the stain only spread, the color sinking deeper. Her reflection in the mirror looked back at her, shaken, embarrassed, hurt. She whispered to herself, "Breathe, just breathe." But each inhale was sharp and unsteady. Her unborn child shifted inside her again, sensing her distress. She placed both hands on her belly and whispered, "I'm okay, baby. You're safe. Mama's okay." Her voice cracked. Behind the closed door, the muffled sounds of music and chatter continued as if nothing had happened. The wealthy laughed, danced, and enjoyed their evening while she stood alone, trying to wash humiliation from her skin. She turned off the water as someone entered the restroom, a young waitress who had seen everything. Her eyes were full of sympathy and anger. the waitress whispered, stepping closer. I'm so sorry. I wanted to intervene, but I can't lose my job. Maya forced a gentle smile, understanding more than she wished she did. It's okay, she said softly. Thank you for checking on me. The girl's eyes drifted to the stain on Maya's dress, her face twisting in sadness. He shouldn't have done that. You didn't deserve it. Maya nodded, swallowing the ache in her throat. No one does. The waitress hesitated, then added quietly, someone left the room right after it happened. I think they went to make a call. Maya blinked. A call? To who? The waitress bit her lip, but her silence was enough. Maya's heart sank. She knew exactly who that call was for. Her husband, Marcus Blackwell. A man feared in every corner of the city. A man people didn't cross. A man who controlled criminal networks with an iron hand, but treated his wife like she was made of gold. She closed her eyes, suddenly afraid, not for herself but for what Marcus might do. He had a dangerous side. A silent rage. A protective instinct that could burn down a city if someone hurt the woman he loved. Oh no, she whispered. No, 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 he cannot come here. But it was already too late. Across the mansion, Andrew Cole continued laughing with his friends, unaware that a storm was racing toward him. He mimicked Maya's shocked reaction, making exaggerated hand gestures as the group around him cackled. I mean really, Andrew bragged loudly, you spill wine on someone like that and suddenly you're the villain? Please. She should be thanking me for giving her attention tonight. His friends laughed harder, egging him on. A few guests looked uncomfortable now, whispering among themselves. The cruelty had crossed a line. But Andrew was too drunk with his own ego to notice. Then, the mansion doors blew open. Not literally, but they might as well have. The music stopped abruptly, as if someone had unplugged the entire sound system. Heads turned. The crowd parted. Silence followed like a shadow. Marcus Blackwell walked in. Tall, sure, dressed in black. Eyes cold enough to freeze the room. He moved with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing to prove and everything to protect. His footsteps echoed across the marble floor, slow but terrifying. Andrew's laughter died in his throat when he finally saw Marcus. His face turned pale. His glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. One of Andrew's friends whispered shakily, "Oh my God, that's Marcus Blackwell." Andrew's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He stepped backward instinctively, bumping into a waiter. "Why is he here?" he whispered. The witness who made the call stood near the wall, trembling but relieved. Someone had to tell Marcus, and he had done the right thing. Marcus didn't look at anyone else. His eyes were locked on one man. Andrew. He approached slowly, deliberately, each step filled with a silent promise. The room held its breath. Even the chandelier lights seemed to dim. When Marcus reached the center of the ballroom, he spoke in a quiet, deadly voice that sliced through the air like a blade. "You poured wine on my wife." Not a question. A statement. A sentence. Andrew's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sweat trickled down his forehead. His knees weakened. Marcus stepped even closer. "My pregnant wife." The room shuddered with tension. A few guests backed away. No one dared to breathe. Andrew's lips trembled. I didn't know." Marcus leaned in slightly, his eyes burning with controlled rage. "You didn't need to know." And that was when the real terror began. The moment Marcus spoke those 4 words, "You didn't need to know," the entire ballroom felt like it had dropped into silence. No music. No laughter. No glasses clinking. Only the sound of people breathing carefully, afraid even their breath might provoke the man standing at the center of the room. Marcus Blackwell wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. His quiet voice carried more danger than any scream could. Andrew stumbled backward, his polished shoes squeaking against the marble. His usual arrogance evaporated, replaced by sheer terror. His lips shook so badly he couldn't form proper words. Marcus, it was cruelty, Marcus said calmly. And you did it to a pregnant woman. A murmur spread through the room, soft and fearful. Maya's friend who had invited her pressed a hand to her chest, praying Marcus wouldn't lose control. A few guests looked away, unable to watch what was unfolding. Others leaned forward, frozen by shock. Andrew tried again. "I didn't mean to hurt her, I swear. It was a joke, a stupid mistake." Marcus moved a step forward. Andrew stopped breathing. Marcus leaned closer, his voice low, steady and cold. "A joke is telling a story. A joke is spilling wine on the carpet. A joke is bumping into someone accidentally." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. But pouring wine on a woman, a pregnant woman, is not a joke. It's an attack. Andrew's knees wobbled. His friends had already taken several steps back, wanting no part in this disaster. One of them whispered, "He's finished." Marcus didn't touch Andrew. He didn't have to. His presence alone made Andrew shrink into himself like a child caught stealing. "You humiliated her," Marcus continued. "You made her feel small. Weak. Alone." He tilted his head slightly. "Do you know who she is to me?" Andrew nodded shakily, sweating through his expensive suit. "She's my wife. The mother of my unborn child. The woman who gave me peace when the world gave me war." A few women in the room swallowed hard, feeling the depth of Marcus's words. "And you think I needed her title, to respect her?" Marcus asked. Andrew opened his mouth, but Marcus raised his hand sharply. Silence returned instantly. "You didn't know her husband was me," Marcus said, "but that isn't your excuse. Because even if she were alone, even if she were nobody, you still had no right." Andrew's voice cracked. "I'm sorry, please, please." Marcus slowly reached into his jacket. The room gasped. For a tense second, everyone thought he was reaching for a weapon. Even Andrew squeezed his eyes shut as if preparing for the end. But Marcus pulled out a handkerchief. He unfolded it calmly, walked past Andrew and approached Maya, who had just stepped back into the ballroom wrapped in a borrowed jacket, her eyes still wet from earlier tears. The entire room watched in stunned silence as Marcus knelt slightly and began gently dabbing the wine stain on her dress, his eyes softening for the first time that night. He whispered to her, "You didn't deserve that, not for a second." Maya's lips trembled. "Marcus, please don't do anything rash." He looked up at her and for a moment the dangerous crime boss faded. He was just a husband, hurt, protective, desperate to fix what had been broken. "I won't touch him," Marcus said softly. "Not physically." Then he stood, turning slowly back toward Andrew. "But what I will do," Marcus said, voice returning to ice, "is worse." Andrew's eyes widened. Millions of thoughts flashed in his mind, debts, danger, threats. His hands shook violently. Marcus stepped closer. "Tonight you didn't just insult my wife. You insulted every woman who has ever been treated like she was less. And I cannot allow men like you to walk away with a simple apology." Andrew swallowed hard, whispering, What are you going to do?" Marcus gave a chilling, emotionless smile. "I'm going to take from you the one thing you value more than decency." He paused. "Your reputation." The guests gasped. Andrew staggered. "No, please, Marcus, wait." But Marcus didn't wait. He snapped his fingers and 3 men in dark suits, his personal guards, stepped out from the shadows near the doorway. They weren't here to fight. They were here to expose. Marcus nodded once and the guards began moving toward Andrew. Andrew's voice cracked with panic. What are they doing?" Marcus's voice was calm, almost gentle. "Showing the world who you really are." And as Andrew watched his empire start to crumble before his very eyes, he realized something terrible. The wine he poured on Maya was only the beginning. Now Marcus was about to pour consequences on him, and they would stain far worse than any glass of red wine ever could. Andrew watched in horror as Marcus's men walked toward him, not with weapons, not with violence, but with quiet, deadly purpose. The kind of purpose that destroys a man's life without laying a single finger on him. His heartbeat thumped wildly in his chest as the guards reached into their jackets and pulled out sleek black tablets. Marcus crossed his arms calmly, his expression unreadable. "Do you know what fear really is, Andrew?" he asked softly. "It's not a punch. Not a threat. It's the moment you realize your power is gone." The guards tapped on their screens. Within seconds, the massive digital screens around the ballroom, normally displaying charity slideshows, flickered. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. The music died. Then the screens lit up with something shocking. A live video of Andrew pouring wine on Maya. Clear. Unedited. Brutal. Gasps erupted like an explosion. The recording showed Andrew's smirk, the deliberate tilt of the glass, the cruel laughter afterward. The room replayed every moment of his guilt in front of hundreds of witnesses, including the people whose money, support, and respect he depended on. Andrew stumbled backward. No, turn it off. "Stop," he shouted, but his voice sounded small, desperate, powerless. Marcus raised a finger. "No," he said. "You showed your cruelty publicly. It's only fair the world sees the truth publicly." The guests whispered in outrage. "I can't believe he did that. To a pregnant woman." He's a monster. I'm never investing with him again. Every word stabbed Andrew like a blade. One of the guards announced loudly, "Video is being streamed to all major social platforms." Andrew's legs almost gave out. "What? Why are you doing this?" he cried, clutching at Marcus's sleeve like a drowning man grabbing for air. Marcus pulled his arm away slowly. "Because you don't deserve the respect you've been given. And tonight, the world learns who you really are." Andrew covered his face in shame, but the screens kept playing, each replay scraping away another piece of his carefully crafted image. Maya watched all this with mixed emotions, hurt still in her eyes but also relief. Not because Andrew was suffering, but because she realized Marcus wasn't turning into a violent monster. He was doing this the right way, cleanly, legally, publicly. Marcus stepped aside to stand beside her. She whispered, "You didn't need to ruin him." But Marcus shook his head gently. "I didn't ruin him, Maya. He ruined himself. I'm just holding up a mirror." Andrew, however, wasn't done falling apart. He turned to the crowd, desperate. "I didn't mean it. It was a joke. She didn't belong here. I was drunk." A woman in a gold gown cut him off sharply. "No excuse. You humiliated her. And you enjoyed it." Another man said coldly, "Your company won't survive this." A third added, "Your investors will pull out by morning." Every voice was another piece of his empire crumbling. Andrew fell to his knees, clutching his head. "Please, Marcus, I beg you. I'll apologize publicly. I'll pay her anything." Marcus's expression softened, but only slightly. "Money won't fix character," he said. He crouched down so Andrew had to look him in the eyes. "You poured wine on my wife," Marcus said quietly. "But what stained her wasn't the wine, it was your arrogance." Andrew sobbed harder. "And what stains you now," Marcus continued, "is the truth." Then Marcus stood up and gave a subtle nod to his men. The guard stepped forward, guiding Andrew toward the exit, not roughly, not violently, but firmly. Each step he took was surrounded by whispers, judgment, disgust. It wasn't Marcus's fist that destroyed Andrew. It was everyone else finally seeing the real him. As Andrew disappeared through the ballroom doors, the screens shut off, returning to silence. Marcus turned to Maya gently. "Are you ready to go home?" Maya nodded. "Yes, please." He wrapped his arm around her carefully, guiding her out of the mansion as guests stepped aside, whispering in awe, not of fear, but of respect for how Marcus protected his wife without losing control. Outside, the cool night air felt lighter, softer, safer. Maya leaned her head on Marcus's shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus kissed the top of her head. "I promise to protect you. Always." What neither of them knew was that the night wasn't over yet. Because by morning, the world would be roaring. About the billionaire who poured wine. And the crime boss who poured truth. The next morning, the city woke up to chaos. Not the loud chaos of sirens or gunshots, but the quiet, devastating chaos of a reputation collapsing. News channels replayed the video of Andrew pouring wine on Maya. Social media exploded with hashtags, outrage, edits, and angry comments. People didn't just watch the video, they tore it apart, frame by frame, exposing every cruel detail. By sunrise, Andrew's name was trending worldwide, but not for the reasons he liked. Maya Blackwell, pregnant woman humiliated at Billionaire Gala. Andrew Cole exposed for cruelty toward expectant mother. Crime boss's wife targeted, justice delivered. Every headline struck like thunder. Inside the Blackwell home, Maya sat on the couch wrapped in a soft blanket, sipping warm tea. She felt better after a night of rest, but the emotional bruise remained. The humiliation replayed in her mind, but she wasn't broken. She was stronger than the pain now, because Marcus had shown her love in a way that silenced fear. Marcus entered the room, his expression serious but gentle when his eyes met hers. He sat beside her and touched her hand carefully. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. Maya managed a small smile. "Better, but everything feels so big now." He nodded. "It became big because people finally saw the truth." She looked down at her stomach. "I didn't want any of this for our baby, stress, fear, attention." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes warm. "Our child will grow up knowing their mother stood strong. That their father protected what mattered. There is nothing wrong in that." Maya's heart softened, but before she could reply, her phone buzzed nonstop, hundreds of message notifications. Her friend called. Celebrities posted statements supporting her. Women she didn't even know sent messages saying she inspired them. But the biggest surprise came from a private journalist group who requested an interview, not to stir drama, but to tell Maya's side of the story. Marcus noticed the message on her screen. "Do you want to speak publicly?" he asked. Maya hesitated. Part of her wanted to stay quiet. She never liked being in the spotlight. But another part, the part that felt the wine hitting her belly, the part that heard Andrew laugh, knew this wasn't just about her now. "It happened to me," she whispered. "But it could have happened to any woman. Pregnant or not. Rich or poor." Marcus nodded slowly, understanding. "You don't have to fight," he said gently. "But if you choose to, I'll stand behind you." She looked into his eyes, seeing both strength and softness, danger and devotion. He was feared by the world, but with her, he was simply a man who loved deeply, protectively. Before Maya could respond, the front gate camera beeped. Unexpected visitors. Marcus frowned and checked the security feed. A group of reporters stood outside the gate, waiting, hoping, hungry for answers. Beyond them were police cars and community leaders demanding Andrew's immediate removal from his own foundation. Then another notification popped on Marcus's phone. Andrew's company board had called an emergency meeting. And soon after, Andrew's investors released statements condemning him. He had destroyed himself in a single night. Maya exhaled slowly. "I didn't want to ruin his life." Marcus sat beside her again. "Maya, he ruined his own life the moment he decided your dignity was worth less than his pride." Her eyes softened. She knew he was right. But she also knew the world wanted more from her now. Not revenge, but truth. A soft knock came at the doorway. It was Maya's doctor, who had rushed over after seeing the headlines. "Maya," the doctor said warmly, "your health is okay, but your stress levels were high last night. You need calm, peace, and support." Marcus stood straighter. "She'll have everything she needs," he promised. The doctor smiled gently. "Good. Because you're carrying a strong heartbeat, and your baby deserves a world safer than the one you faced last night." Maya touched her stomach again, feeling tears form, not from sadness but from overwhelming emotion. Marcus brushed a tear from her cheek and whispered, "You're not alone. Not now. Not ever." She leaned into him, his arm wrapping protectively around her. But outside the world kept spinning, waiting. For Maya's voice. For her truth. For her courage. And deep inside her heart, Maya knew. She couldn't stay silent anymore. Because sometimes silence protects peace. And sometimes silence protects injustice. And she was done protecting injustice. Tomorrow she would speak. Tomorrow she would stand. Tomorrow she would change everything. But tonight, she rested in the arms of the man who would burn the world to protect her. The next morning arrived with a kind of quiet that felt too heavy to ignore. Outside the gates of the Blackwell residence, reporters gathered with cameras ready, microphones raised, and questions burning on their tongues. The whole city, maybe even the whole country, waited to hear from the woman at the center of it all. Inside, Maya sat at the kitchen table with a cup of warm tea cradled in her hands. The morning sun touched her face gently as if trying to comfort her. She wasn't shaking anymore. She wasn't hiding in a restroom cleaning wine from her dress. She wasn't the silent victim in the corner of a glittering ballroom. She was something else now. Something stronger. Something braver. Marcus stood near the window watching the reporters through the curtains. His jaw was tense, his fingers curled in a fist. "You don't have to talk to them," he said again, his voice low but protective. "You owe nothing to anyone." Maya looked at him softly. "Maybe I don't owe them anything, but maybe other women need something from me." He turned to her slowly. She placed her hand on her belly. "If I stay quiet, Andrew wins. People like him win. They think they can treat anyone however they want." Marcus's anger softened into pride. "If you want to speak, I'll be right beside you." She smiled gently. "I know." By midday, the Blackwell security team prepared a press area in the front courtyard. Not too large, not too crowded, but enough for cameras and journalists to gather. People online were already waiting for the live stream. Every news channel prepared for her statement. When Maya finally stepped out of the front door, the crowd fell silent. She was dressed simply, just like the night of the party. No diamonds, no designer brands, no fancy makeup. Only a soft cream-colored dress and the natural strength in her eyes. Marcus walked beside her, not in front of her. Not as a shield, but as support. The cameras clicked like 1,000 tiny heartbeats. Maya stood behind the microphone, took a slow breath, and began. "Last night," she said, her voice steady, "I went to a charity event hoping to enjoy an evening with friends." She paused, her eyes lowering for a moment before lifting again with quiet strength. "Instead, I became the target of cruelty." A ripple of empathy moved through the crowd. "A man poured wine on me, she continued. He laughed at me. He insulted me. And he did it because he thought I didn't belong. Because he thought I was less. She placed her hand protectively over her stomach. But I wasn't alone that night. I had my baby with me. And what hurt me most wasn't the stain on my dress. It was knowing my child felt my fear. She breathed deeply, letting the wind carry her words. I'm not here for revenge. I'm not here to destroy anyone. I'm here because what happened to me happens to women every day. Women who aren't wealthy. Women who aren't protected. Women who don't have a voice someone will listen to. Reporters leaned closer, touched by her honesty. I speak today for them, she said firmly. For every woman pushed aside, judged, belittled, or mistreated. This is bigger than one dress, bigger than one party, bigger than one man. She looked directly into the cameras, into the thousands watching from their screens. We must learn to treat every human being with dignity. Respect shouldn't depend on status or wealth. Every woman deserves safety. Every mother deserves peace. Every person deserves kindness. A soft breeze brushed her hair as she continued. I forgive what happened to me, but I won't forget it. And I won't let the world forget it either. Let this be a reminder. When you hurt one woman, you send a message to all women. When you stand up for one woman, you protect them all. The crowd was silent, moved, shaken, inspired. Maya stepped back from the microphone, and Marcus placed his hand gently on her back, pride shining in his eyes. As they turned to walk inside, a reporter shouted, Mrs. Blackwell, what will you do next? Maya paused, looking over her shoulder with a soft but powerful smile. I will raise my child in a world where people choose kindness over arrogance, she said. And I'll keep speaking until that world exists. The cameras flashed. Applause rose, not chaotic but respectful and warm. That night her speech went viral. Millions shared it. Women cried. Men listened. Even Andrew, alone in his mansion, watched it with regret burning in his chest. And Maya, once humiliated in a room of strangers, became a symbol of strength, dignity, and the quiet courage that shakes the world. Not by shouting. Not by fighting. But by standing. And speaking. She wasn't just the wife of a feared man. She became the voice countless women never had.